Hi, this is Travis with another video for you guys. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, also been a personal trainer now for a little over 15 years. And so I'm going to talk about the mini band again today. I've already added a mini band lower and a mini band upper video, but today I'm going to be talking about 3 different ways to get after the hamstring muscles in different positions. And it's not always to say that one position is better than the other, but some people just anatomically can sometimes feel it better in one position than the other. I showed one variation in my mini band leg video, but I'm going to add some new stuff today that I haven't really touched on yet. Definitely a cool thing you can add as a standalone exercise, or you can add these now for those of you getting back into a gym, have access to gym equipment. You can just throw these guys in your pocket. For those of you going to a gym, it really doesn't take up a lot of space and just a pretty cool tool. So for those of you who have one, go ahead and grab it and we'll get started. Okay, so this is a variation that I showed in the mini band leg video some of you might be familiar with, but I'm going to show a little bit of a variation on it today. So the simplest way to do this would be to just roll over on your stomach. You can always put a pillow or something underneath you here if you need to. From there, you just hold your feet down so one leg stays on the ground while the other leg does a curl, okay? And so you can alternate or just stay on one side. And so the cool thing is I actually work my quads because I'm holding my leg down on this side while I get my hamstrings as I curl here. Now try to not let your back arch too much. Try to keep yourself fairly neutral and then curl. So for some of you, it might be hard to keep your back neutral in that position. And so what you've probably seen in the gym when you're face down on a gym machine is it has a little bit of an angle to it. And so your legs tend to be a little bit lower, your feet are lower than your hips. And so you can simulate that. If you have a stability ball laying around, you can kind of use this as a makeshift weight bench. And so what you would do for that is you put your stomach on it, try to find a place to secure yourself, and then do your hamstring curl from this position. And as you can see, it tends to be a little bit easier to stabilize your low back by having a ball. The size of the ball is not critical, but if it's too big, it might be hard to support yourself on your hands. So I just kind of come over this again to where I can lock myself in, and then I would go into a hamstring curl. Now sometimes if your feet are too close together, it's hard to keep that tension, so I tend to spread my feet just a little bit, and then from there I can usually lock this in pretty well. And so I would just do that until I can feel those hamstring muscles starting to talk to me. And once they're out of gas, you can go ahead and take a break. That's just a nice way to get into the hamstrings in what we call a prone, or a face down position. So many of you have probably seen a hamstring curl machine in the gym where you're seated. So many times you'll have a pad that'll kind of secure your legs, and then there's a pad that goes down underneath your feet, and you'll sort of curl it underneath you like this to do a seated hamstring curl. Now you can't exactly do that with the band because there's no tension on it. But what you can do is you can hold one leg up in the air and then curl the other one. And what's cool about this variation is you get isometric quadriceps as I'm curling down. So it's kind of hard actually, harder than it looks, to keep yourself in this position. And then so you actually get quite a bit of lower abdominals as well as the quads. And so sometimes what you might want to do is sit up a little higher. This chair is a little bit low for me, so sometimes I'll put something on it to get me up just a little bit higher. But you still can kind of get the idea where you're trying to hold one leg, as straight as you can, curl the other one underneath you, okay? And again, my feet aren't totally together. I have just a little bit of a spread, and that just helps to keep the band secured in place. Sometimes it'll still slide up on you, and that gets kind of annoying, but usually if you fight with it, you can get it to sort of stay in the same spot, okay? Many times if you just do one side continuously, that kind of helps the band to stay in place more. When you're alternating, sometimes the band wants to run away on you. So again, I would just go through this until I feel some hamstrings. You're gonna feel some quads too though, so it's pretty cool because you actually really feel the thighs in general because you're gonna feel that isometric thigh muscle working too. So I'll just run through this, again, trying to just, be mindful of my posture. I'm not trying to, hunch over, just sit up nice and tall, run through this. And again, I could just rest when I'm tired, or I could come in and then maybe do a leg extension afterwards, which I actually showed in my knee pain video. But that's optional. Certainly you could just rest after the hamstring exercise, or do a superset, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. But that's the seated hamstring curl. Okay, so the last one I'm going to throw at you guys for today is going to be a standing hamstring curl exercise. So you can hold onto a chair, foam roller, something like that. Okay, and then again, I can just do my standing hamstring curl. Now the advantage here is I don't have to do as much isometric quadriceps because my body weight is pretty much keeping this leg still. Now obviously I have to stabilize and balance myself somewhat. And so sometimes what I'll do is, If you just purely want to really work hamstrings, you might want that stability and just stabilize yourself here. If you want to work your balance though, there's no reason why you couldn't actually try and just do this freestanding. And that's actually kind of a cool way to actually work your hips. And so I'm actually kind of doing a little bit of a rocking, and so I'm kind of weight shifting a little bit side to side, you know, and I could play around my positioning. Now, many times standing up completely tall, we tend to arch our back sometimes. So what you don't want to do is let that knee come forward a lot as you curl. Try to keep your knee kind of more underneath your hip as best you can, okay? And so sometimes having just a slight, you know, bend, kind of a semi-squatted position can be helpful to lock that in. Keeping that pressure on the hamstrings, just try to lock that position in where your knees aren't really coming forward that much relative to your hips, so it's a fairly straight line. And that's just a nice way. I can already feel those hamstrings talking to me. And so again, I could superset that. I could then go to a banded deadlift, like I showed in the deadlift video. I could take a break. I could sit in the chair. I could do a quad exercise. So there's some cool ways you can mix that up. Now, as far as these variations go, again, I wouldn't say one's better than the other. They're all different. Some people might feel it more when they're doing the laying down, you know, the face down version versus the standing version. Some people might like the way the, you know, seated version really gets the quads. So, you know, again, it's just nice to mix and match sometimes. I think the variety can sometimes be helpful for the muscles, but it doesn't mean you have to do a different variation every time. But you can definitely pepper these in, and I think it can be a pretty cool way to just get after the hamstring muscles. You know, one thing it also does, I didn't mention, is it works your hips pretty well too, because the band is not only trying to, you know, bring your leg back down many times, it's also trying to bring it in, and so you actually get the hip abductors as well. So you get a little more bang for your buck with these mini bands, even in a lot of traditional gym equipment. Now that being said, sometimes with gym equipment though, you do want that specific tension where you really want to just key in on the muscle and not worry about a lot of stabilization. So everything can have its time, you know, place. It just kind of depends on what your goal is. But if you haven't done a lot of this stuff, I'd encourage you to try it out and see what you think. Because again, these are just simple enough to throw in your pocket. You know, you can go into a gym and just incorporate it, maybe add in or supplement what you might already be doing as part of your workout for your hamstrings.